Please. Please, I can't breathe. Please, man. I can't breathe all the time.
He started calling his mama name, mama. And that's when he stopped talking.
I'm through.
I know you're in.
Get off of him now. What is wrong with y'all?
He's not responsive right now. He's not responsive right now, bro.
You know, our country is hurting. Our world is hurting.
It's not a process that's happening, but it's happened. Portland has replaced Black people with Black Lives Matter signs.
Black people in Oregon were not allowed to be in here, and they had a certain amount of time to get out or they would get slashes. So like knowing why there's not a lot of Black people in Oregon, there's a reason for that.
It's going out wearing Black Lives t-shirts and protesting is all great and dandy, but at the end of the day, there's still a lot of needs that Black people are not receiving right now.
Lionel, Mary, Jai, and Anthony are educators at Woodlawn Elementary School, the place we spent the entire 2019-2020 school year telling stories and documenting life.
And it's very amazing that you all decided to, you know, follow us this year, because this is a year that our children will be talking about in history classes all around, you know, in the future about the impacts. And unfortunately, we're not even sure of all the ramifications of this and how it's going to impact us in years to come.
I'm KGW investigative reporter Kristen Severance. We went into this project with no idea what the stories would be. This was Woodlawn's story. We were just here to tell it. And from that first day on, the obvious, clear thread between almost all the episodes was race in education.
Sometimes it's not going to sit here and get them to understand the things they know if we're just sitting here being nice. And especially for our children of color, I feel like we don't have any time to waste.
First grade, I don't think you'll ever find 2 Black teachers in first grade in the state of Oregon. I think that's like a unicorn.
That's kind of every single day of my life, is the lens that somebody sees me as is negative first, and that will harm them first.
And while the rest of the world is now demanding racial equality, the teachers at Woodlawn have been talking about this and pushing for this their whole lives.
Malcolm X talked about this idea of, you know, if you stick a knife in my back 9 inches and pull it out 6 inches, that's not progress. If you pull the knife all the way out, that's not progress. The progress comes from healing the wound that was inflicted. And at this point, to a large degree, they're not even acknowledging that the knife is there.
Before we head back to continue this project in the fall, we wanted to talk with these educators about the racial reckoning happening now. From conversations about Black Lives Matter, the protests happening in Portland, and how they'll address all of it with their students. This is Inside Woodlawn. No time to waste.
The housing bubble that went bust, so many American homes worth so much less.
Now to the millions of homeowners being squeezed in this financial crisis.
With the housing market slowing, foreclosure rates are on the rise.
Banks took back about 30,000 homes last month. That's a 4%.
Desperate times for the families who no longer have a place to call home.
The worst of the foreclosure crisis passed years ago. But for some of those who lost their homes, it never really ended. Almost a decade later, they're still trying to fend off the Portland Water Bureau, who sent them to collections for unpaid water and sewer bills that built up after the banks forced them to leave.
I was living the dream. I was making great money. I bought a house on Hayden Island, in a gated community. We were the youngest couple on the block. It was awesome. And it was awesome until 2008 came around.
Oh my God.
it seems to get worse by the day.
Oh my God, it's our house.
Homes, lives, entire towns.
Just everything along 22 is just gone.
Just gone. Here's the story.
I'm Dan Haggerty. Thank you for being with us. Not kind of the normal start to our show. We typically have the music, flashy graphics, none of that tonight. None of the other local news cliches you're used to seeing. We're way beyond that. And I need to say right at the very top here, before we get started, if you are in an area close to these fires, please monitor your emergency officials. If you have to go, you need to go. So do that. And remember, this is not just a rural Oregon thing. All of Clackamas County is under some kind of evacuation notice right now. All of Clackamas County, think about that. Look at the map here. The chunks in green are under a level 1. That means to be ready, to pack a bag, to know that you might have to go. And that is Oregon City, Lake O, Wilsonville, all those places. But the red is level 3. That means stop what you're doing and leave now. And that includes all of Estacada. If you live in Estacada, you need to evacuate your home right now. These red zones just grew actually within the last hour, just to give you an idea of how fast things are changing and happening. And I want to show you a different kind of map right now. This is a satellite image from the Bureau of Land Management of Oregon and Washington. And as dramatic as it is to see the fire and the video from the ground and the damage that we've seen, it is important to zoom out a little bit and look at the big picture. See, Oregon is dealing with several mega fires, and that means that those are fires that are burning more than 100,000 acres. In 120 years, we have never had more than 2 mega fires in a single year. Right now, depending on how you count, we have 3 or 4 burning simultaneously. Our state is in trouble right now. Governor Brown called it unimaginable, and today the unimaginable happened. We learned just after 4 that 2 people have been killed in the Santiam fire east of Salem. The little boy you see on the left there, he's 12 years old. He was found dead with his dog near his home in Lyons. His name is Wyatt. That's where the Santiam fire is burning right now. His grandmother, Peggy, on the right, she also died. Governor Brown said it perhaps clearer than anybody so far. She said this could be the greatest loss of human lives and property due to wildfire in our state's history.
My name's Cameron Green. I am 10 years old.
When Cameron said this on the first day of school,
I was like, I'm really doing this. I'm really going to 5th grade. I can't believe this.
she never imagined she'd be ending the year like this.
Hey, Miss Flores. I feel like it was just, it's okay to miss stuff in life, but I'm also gonna say I was upset, highly sad, and upset very much.
Sitting in the back of her mom's SUV, waiting for her teachers to drive by.
I'm happy to see that I get to wave to my teachers, but also I'm a little bit kind of upset because I can't give them a hug.
But COVID-19 changed everything. Now, teacher parades are a thing.
It's about 4.5 miles, and we're just gonna drive with our hazards on and balloons and streamers and have the windows down and just wave our way through.
Woodlawn staffers decorated their cars with streamers and signs to celebrate the students.
I honestly believe we could be on the verge of a tectonic shift. We have the attention of the entire world. It's going to take this kind of groundswell of people who are not of color to say enough is enough. You cannot heal something if you don't look at it, acknowledge it, take it in, and let it out.
it's so quiet out.
In Astoria, Oregon, near where the mighty Columbia River meets the Pacific Ocean.
Look at this. There's not a soul. There's not a car to be seen.
The place Lewis and Clark once explored.
Nobody walking.
More than 200 years later, during the height of a historic pandemic.
Yeah. It's devastated the local economy here.
Another well-known local figure.
It's really devastating. It's literally killing people.
Explores the streets of Astoria alone. This is the unlikely story of a man known as...
They call me Helmet John Albert Weddle, a colorful character.
Helmet John, for the red motorcycle helmet he sometimes wears for protection.
It's real life.
And how he's helping his town during the age of social distancing rediscover what home is.
Oh yeah, definitely, yeah.
For a man without a house, Helmet John is home.
I'm outdoors in the winter too, you know. Oh, it rains, snow, sleet, or hail. Here he is.
As rough as John's life
tough.
is, that laugh punctuates nearly everything he says. It's a life the 73-year-old chooses to live.
My territory ranges from 2nd to 22nd to 24th, I guess it is. Yeah.
But there's a lot more to John Albert Weddle.
I have a master's in physics at Berkeley. I have a master's in business at New York University Business School. So I have enough theoretical background to analyze what's going on here.
And Helmet John's story got the attention of another of Astoria's colorful citizens. Jeff Daly, known for restoring parts of a town's history, including the Joy Train.
You want to go check out his wagon?
The Joy Train, our tool that we get around in.
A former American Legion parade float.
I've known John for about 5 years. Being a cameraman, photographer, how could you not be attracted to him?
Daly also happens to be a filmmaker.
Let's don't forget this whole group of people that live on our streets, live in our communities.
So that idea inspired Jeff to spend weeks chronicling Helmet John's wanderings during a pandemic.
Here's a man that already has social distancing because most people are afraid of him.
Creating a 30-minute documentary.
Optimism to me is a survival skill. It is essential, especially in 2020.
Oh yeah, I would certainly say that we are optimistic about our engagement. I'm grateful that there's a couple of really promising vaccines coming down the pike.
What makes me optimistic about 2021 is connection and hugs. I think 2021 has a lot of hugs for us. I miss hugs.
I'm optimistic about our community. I think we're gonna heal. Collectively, we've gone through something that people haven't gone through in a century almost.
It goes back to that human spirit. There's something within us that is a light that we can share with others. And as long as we don't lose that, I think anything is possible.
We are living in an era of misinformation, or is it disinformation? There is a difference, and it's key. It festers in private Facebook groups.
And then it just takes on a life of its own.
It's even made its way into Oregon's Senate race.
And therefore, I stand with Q and the team.
And last night, it was out in full force.
It's been an interesting hour and a half.
On the debate stage.
It's a rigged election.
Here's the story. Misinformation or disinformation. We're going to say it's the misinformation or disinformation edition.
We are back. We are back. It feels good to be back. All right. And those words are going to bring us to our big story, which is all about disinformation and misinformation, because I think a lot of people think that misinformation and disinformation are identical, kind of like, I don't know, the Olsen twins. Like, we're not really quite sure why there are two of them, but there are, so we're just going to deal with it. But in reality, they're more like Will Ferrell and the drummer from the Red Hot Chili Peppers. They might look a lot alike, but they're actually not even related. I know, I couldn't believe that either. They look like brothers. But there is a difference between misinformation and disinformation, and the difference lies in intent. See, misinformation is false information shared unintentionally, like your uncle sharing a fake article on Facebook or something like that. He probably just didn't take the time to do the research. He hit that share button after reading nothing more than a headline. But disinformation is more insidious. It is false information shared on purpose with the knowledge that it is false, which is a popular technique with online bots. And we saw lots of false information shared before, during, and after last night's debate. In the hours leading up to it, false rumors like this one started spreading that Vice President Biden was wearing a wire or an earpiece, which turned out to be a crease in his shirt and a rosary on his wrist. Others accused him of using performance-enhancing drugs, which Biden dismissed, apparently having fun with it by tweeting this picture of what he said was his actual earpiece and performance enhancers, earphones, and ice cream. Now, later during the debate, President Trump repeatedly pushed the lie that mail-in voting is rife with fraud. It is not. Oregon's Republican Secretary of State has said so over and over and over. So has Washington's. And today, hours after the debate ended, Trump tweeted that Biden refused to say the word law and order during their back and forth about Portland protests. But, you know, they record these things, so it's on video, and he did.
Are you in favor of law and order?
I'm in favor of law. You follow.
Are you in favor of law and order? Go
yes,
ahead.
I'm a, you asked a question. Let him finish. Law and order. Law and order. Let him. Law and order with justice, where people get treated fairly.
Okay. Now, look, we can debate whether that is misinformation or disinformation, because for all we know, people truly believed Biden was wearing a wire and thought that they were benefiting people by sharing that. Or Trump just didn't hear Biden say law and order, which I guess is possible. I don't know. But in the end, does it matter? Does any of that matter? Because true or not, it still made its way into our news feeds. But disinformation and misinformation doesn't get started on the debate stage. See, far too often it starts in one of the countless private Facebook groups that maybe you belong to that have popped up in the recent years. See, some of these groups have tens of thousands of members and virtually no oversight at all about what gets posted, which is why Kristen Severance found out they are ripe for conspiracy theories.
And it's all around us. There's nowhere here that doesn't have fire. Winds about 60 miles an hour, pushing it toward us. We have no idea how Idana or Detroit are. But at this time, they're probably all the way burnt up. This is all we have here.
Fueled by extreme winds, the Beachy Creek fire exploded.
Oh my God, come on. That's the whole ton of gates right there.
Walls of fire and smoke raced through the Sandiam Canyon. Police and firefighters dodged falling trees and boulders on Highway 22 to help get everyone out of the mountains.
There's fire on both sides of the road, and I don't know at what point trees are going to start falling on it.
It was a frantic escape, and not everyone survived. The Beachy Creek fire had been smoldering in a remote part of the wilderness for weeks. So how did a 10-acre fire become one of the most destructive wildfires in Oregon history? We analyzed satellite images, photos, video, incident reports, weather forecast, and first responder radio traffic.
Multiple spot fires.
To reconstruct how this wildfire simply erupted. On the morning of August 16th, the Beachy Creek fire would become one of the largest blazes in state history. Satellite images show the path of destruction, the lakeside resort town of Detroit before, then after, and the neighboring community of Gates, seen here. What started as a small fire in a remote part of the wilderness would scorch nearly 200,000 acres and decimate thousands of homes and buildings in its path. At least 5 people lost their lives. Fire crews estimate the Beachy Creek will continue to smolder into winter. And recovery in the Santiam Canyon will take much, much longer.
And those satellite maps, man, it tells a lot, doesn't it? We have a tool up for you right now if you want to go back and look at some of that. KGW.com. You can look at those photos and that slide bar as you kind of go back and forth to see the before and after the fire. We have photos of Detroit, Mill City, Gates, and the Santiam River. It's sobering to see this.
Sometimes you can tell the story of an entire community on just one street, but you need the right guide. Ours was known simply as Bonsai, a welcoming person on a road that's grown wary of strangers.
This is our spread right over here. You can see right in the corner between the barn and the house, a huge shipping container storage shed thing melted. There's little hot spots burning everywhere. Oh, yo, this house is okay. And all the forest right there was on fire, and it stopped right at our doorstep.
The first doorstep he took us to.
The miracle is how the fire came right up to the edge of his yard over here.
Belonged to another person with just one name, Nako.
It's hard to stay away from it, you know, when it's your whole life.
I should probably mention he's a famous musician and headman for Nako in Medicine for the People.
We have a tight little community in this neighborhood.
Bonsai sent out a neighborhood text when the flames got close.
I wrote to them, "Hey everyone, I'm so sorry to say that it seems like the worst case scenario is here. All the fire trucks are parked here in town. It seems like they had to retreat. Sorry for the bad news, everyone. Let's stay in touch."
I'll be the earth that ground you from the chaos all around. I'll be the home you return to. I can be your middle ground.
It's been an emotional experience.
As a reminder.
Not necessarily sad, a lot like some of Nako's music. There's a hopeful sense on this street, and with the people living on it, that soon the smoke will clear for a better path through Estacada.
So tell me, Archer, what do you know about the coronavirus?
I know that it's spreading quickly. I know it's all over the world.
It's killed a lot of people and infected a lot of people. That they can't find a cure with it right now.
I'm just scared to get it. I'm scared to know how it feels. I'm scared to know how everybody else feels about it. I'm scared of it.
The coronavirus can get my mom's dad because his lungs work. So they had to replace them. I'm afraid the coronavirus will just do damage to our world.
How do you think we're all gonna get through this?
Working together. I think we would get through this by washing our hands.
Let the doctors do their job.
Only leave your house if you have to, like for groceries, or maybe your medicine. But don't go to the store if you don't need anything. Now is not the time to chatter up with Susan at Target. Stay home, don't socialize. Read a book, sit in a bubble bath, have some sparkling grape juice, binge watch some Netflix shows. Practice some self-care. Do that. You deserve it.
Remember the story from 2002 of Hawkette, the dog lost at sea? Probably not, but what happened with Hawkette teaches us a lot about psychic numbing. In March of 2002, a fire broke out on an oil tanker 800 miles south of Hawaii. The boat and its crew drifted for over 2 weeks before a passing cruise ship rescued them. It was only after the tanker had been abandoned that the crew realized they were one short. The captain's dog had been left behind. Somewhere in the Pacific, a 2-year-old terrier floated alone on a big, derelict ship. The media picked up the story and word spread. Within days, thousands of dollars in donations poured in to fund rescue efforts for Hawkette. The Hawaiian Humane Society paid a private company $48,000 to look for the ship, but to no avail. Eventually, it was the U.S. Coast Guard who redirected taxpayer funds and hired a boat to recover the tanker and the dog on it. Now here's the science of why we care about one little dog, but maybe not all the dogs who might need help around the world. Research shows that we will go to great lengths to save one life, but we become indifferent when a story is about a big group of people, like the thousands of coronavirus deaths, or a disaster in a foreign country. Why is that?
The feeling system has kind of very limited range. It can't ramp up.
That's University of Oregon psychology professor Paul Slovic, who has spent his whole life studying why people do what they do and why they stop caring.
The difference between 0 people at risk and 1 is huge. But if I told you that there were 87 people in danger in some situation, and then I told you that there's 88, you won't feel any different.
In fact, not only does our concern plateau with additional lives at risk, but when the number becomes too big, our compassion might actually decrease. We care less when we should care more.
At some level, we may not feel anything. They're just numbers. Like if 100,000, 1 million, we can't relate to those numbers, and we lose feeling. We call it the compassion fade or compassion collapse.
In his 50 years of research, Slovic found something else that was startling about the way our brains work. We are less willing to help if we think what we're doing only helps a little.
If the need is great and our contribution is a small proportion, then we kind of get the feeling, well, maybe it's not worth it. Maybe it's a drop in the bucket.
Hi. Good morning. I'm excited. Excited, maybe a little bit nervous. Should we do funny faces? No.
You're watching the crossing of a major finish line.
Hi.
The hugs, the relief, took months of work.
It does not feel like it's been 9, right? Yeah.
Now, a rare chance to celebrate.
Congratulations.
Because this is graduation day.
I'm very grateful for each one of you ladies. You're all very inspiring.
These 29 women are sitting on a small stage in front of a crowd.
But this kind of gives me a map so that I can see where I'm going.
They've spent 8 months developing plans. One, to start a small business. Another, to rebuild their lives. Something they can act on once they're finally free.
During a time that I didn't know how to cope with my daughter fighting cancer, I turned to prescription medication.
She says her addiction and the grief over her daughter's cancer turned her into someone she doesn't recognize.
It's not something easy to deal with to watch your daughter go through that. And it's no excuse for where my life, fell into criminal activity and addiction that I couldn't control, but it helped me get through it.
Oh my God. Oh my God.
It seems to get worse by the day.
Oh my God, it's our house.
Homes, lives, entire towns.
Just everything along 22 is just gone.
Just gone. Here's the story. I'm Dan Haggerty. Thank you for being with us. Not kind of the normal start to our show. We typically have the music, flashy graphics, none of that tonight. None of the other local news cliches you're used to seeing. We're way beyond that. And I need to say right at the very top here, before we get started, if you are in an area close to these fires, please monitor your emergency officials. If you have to go, you need to go. So do that. And remember, this is not just a rural Oregon thing. All of Clackamas County is under some kind of evacuation notice right now. All of Clackamas County, think about that. Look at the map here. The chunks in green are under a level 1. That means to be ready, to pack a bag, to know that you might have to go. And that is Oregon City, Lake O, Wilsonville, all of those places. But the red is level 3. That means stop what you're doing and leave now. And that includes all of Estacada. If you live in Estacada, you need to evacuate your home right now. These red zones just grew actually within the last hour, just to give you an idea of how fast things are changing and happening. And I want to show you a different kind of map right now. This is a satellite image from the Bureau of Land Management of Oregon and Washington. And as dramatic as it is to see the fire and the video from the ground and the damage that we've seen, it is important to zoom out a little bit and look at the big picture. See, Oregon is dealing with several mega fires, and that means that those are fires that are burning more than 100,000 acres. In 120 years, we have never had more than 2 mega fires in a single year. Right now, depending on how you count, we have 3 or 4 burning simultaneously. Our state is in trouble right now. Governor Brown called it unimaginable, and today the unimaginable happened. We learned just after 4 that 2 people have been killed in the Santiam fire east of Salem. The little boy you see on the left there, he's 12 years old. He was found dead with his dog near his home in Lyons. His name is Wyatt. That's where the Santiam fire is burning right now. His grandmother, Peggy, on the right, she also died. Governor Brown said it perhaps clearer than anybody so far. She said this could be the greatest loss of human lives and property due to wildfire in our state's history.
Early reports indicate that the towns of Detroit in Central Oregon, Blue River and Vida in Lane County, and Phoenix and Talent in Southern Oregon are substantially destroyed. Hundreds of homes have been lost, and we continue to carry out mass evacuations across the entire state.
The governor also said that she has invoked the Fire Conflagration Act for the entire state, and this is another thing that's never happened before. It's a good thing, though. What it does is it gives the fire marshal the ability to move resources basically wherever they think they're needed. She also asked the federal government for some help here. She wants them to declare a federal emergency, which would free up even more resources, which we need. We said yesterday how there's only so much, though, that words can do to describe what is happening. You have to see it, really. So Christine Pitawanich has a look from one of those mega fires, the Santiam fire burning in Marion County.
My God, this is our driveway.
This is video Cindy Sharon shot on her phone.
Oh my God. Oh my God.
Her family's home in Gates is leveled.
Oh my God, thank God we got out of here. Oh my God, it's our house.
We just went back a little bit ago and it is a war zone. I've never seen anything like it.
From Lyons to our house, 30 plus homes. Each side of the road is just homes that are lost and gone.
Cindy and Brian said they'd heard so many rumors about the destruction that they had to see it for themselves.
It was just so much smoke you couldn't hardly see anything, and then all the trees that were down and still on fire, and our house was completely flat.
It looked like a bomb went off, is what it looked like.
The Sharons say they got out on Monday night, at first because they were worried about the wind and trees falling on their home. But they quickly realized there were other things to worry about.
We looked out and seen the hill across the river look like lava coming down the hill.
That's when we noticed that we better be moving.
They grabbed what they could in 10 minutes.
And then I called my dad and they got their stuff out, but their farm and everything's gone too in Mahama.
This is what we saw in the area around Mahama and Lyons. Homes burned down, stuff still on fire, and people trying to pick up the pieces.
Just seeing the houses that are burned up down 22 and the families.
Very sad.
Sad.
The only thing that makes me feel good is my whole family's safe. All of our animals are safe. And I'm a contractor, so I'm just going to build everything back better than it was. We're fortunate.
Yeah.
Even though we lost everything, we're still more fortunate than most.
All right, let's talk to Matt Zaffino now. Matt, I've been turning to you a lot this past week just for some understanding, some context, really what we're witnessing here. I will say it is not too often that these fires creep so close to really populated areas like the metro area.
Yeah, and that's what's freaking out a lot of people. So let me address that a little bit. If you live in Portland, a lot of people have been asking this question. I did a Facebook Live earlier today, and I got this question a lot. If you live in Portland, you may be wondering, what's the risk happening here? There's smoke in the sky, and it's pretty eerie. But here's the thing. Unless you are near an existing fire, the odds of you being threatened by fire are actually quite low. And by near a fire, I mean like really close. The fires we're seeing up in the Cascade foothills, places like Estacada, that's a bit of a different story because they live among the trees. The winds were really bad there and are still pretty strong, but the winds are dying off. I think for most of us in the Portland area, the risk of actually having a fire come to our neighborhood is quite low. That said, we need to be extra careful, leave the barbecue off for a while, for several days now, because we don't need any other fires starting because there is still a good breeze out there. We'll talk more about that, Dan, in a little bit, but I want to show you what's going on right now. First, we are still under a fire weather warning until now 8 o'clock tomorrow morning. That has been extended. This is live from our sky cam out of the Reserve Golf Course. You can see the smoke on the left and to the south. To the right doesn't look as bad. There's a little bit of clearing there. We're kind of right on the edge of the smoke. I look out the window here and I can see the blue sky to the north. Very low humidity though, just 13%, still an east wind. This is video from Andrew Catron. Shot this time lapse down in Wilsonville. You can see the wind, you can see the smoke moving along with that wind. So Andrew, thank you for sending in this time lapse. We love getting the video and the pictures from all of our viewers and watchers out there. It's great to see. Now let's talk more about the wind. They are still quite strong out at the airport in Troutdale, but that's where they're going to remain the strongest. Look at our other wind reports. They've gone calm in several locations, including Yamhill and Sherwood. They're very light. Newburgh, northeast wind, but only 7 miles an hour. That's good news for that Bald Mountain fire, too, because that's going to keep it confined to the areas where it is presently burning. So still, we've got some decent wind out there, but mainly and increasingly confined to areas around the gorge. Medford has a good wind still southeast of 14, unfortunately. This is a picture from today. This is real. Todd Klingler shot this in the Newburgh area. The high fire danger continues even as our winds ease. Now, those east winds will increasingly, and by that I mean tonight, become confined to the gorge and the west side of the Cascades and a little bit on the coast range. But they are weakening, and by tomorrow, they're going to be largely over. The smoke, however, will remain through the weekend. It'll be hot through Friday, cooler over the weekend. Now, a couple things on climate change and wildfire. Oregon acres burned thousands of acres since 1980. It's kind of up and down. In fact, last year was a super quiet year. That spike on the right was 2017. We had the Eagle Creek fire. But in the context of the West and our temperatures going up, they are going up, and the wildfires seem to be going up as well. In fact, we've got, as I mentioned, that fire weather warning out. You can see it on the map behind me here. Right now, along the West Coast, there are about 30 million people that are under fire weather warnings. It's not just Oregon and Washington. That extends from the California border all the way up to the Canadian border, Dan.
Unbelievable. But, some of the things we were talking about off the top, the people who are in these really populated areas who are not used to having this type of threat in their neighborhood up near the Portland area. It was some good context to be concerned but not to panic. Was that kind of what you were saying off the top?
That's exactly right. We should be concerned because our friends and neighbors all around us in the greater sense are dealing with just horrific conditions. But for Portland, absolutely keep an eye on it. Even in other localities like down in Yamhill County or up in Clark County, keep an eye on it. But for most of us in the city and in the urban areas, we're not going to be dealing with fire as long as no new ones start. There's no lightning right now. It's all about how dry the conditions are, and they are dry, and they'll continue to be dry for a couple of more days. But I think, yes, keep an eye on it. We'll be concerned, but don't panic. It's not like we're going to have fires breaking out all over the place. Fingers crossed on that. And more context for you, too, Dan. I've lived here quite a while, as you know. I've never seen evacuations like this, not only in the Clackamas County area, but through all of Western Oregon. And I used to live down in Ashland and Medford. I've never seen this kind of fire activity on the west side of the state or anywhere in the state like we're seeing right now. This truly is unprecedented.
Yeah, a lot of anxious people out there. Matt, thank you so much. I appreciate the perspective, as always. For more perspective, I want to turn to another member of the KGW team, someone who is knows this region extremely well, a guy named Pat Doris. You know him probably pretty well, too. He's reported on his fair share of fire seasons, and today he's helping us get a better sense of the massive scope of these fires we're seeing across the state.
From the air, you get a glimpse of what's happening, of the ferocious fires pushed by raging winds and helped by low humidity as they race through the forests and brushlands of Oregon. It's the worst collection of fires at one time in Oregon in the last 120 years. The biggest, the Santiam, east of Salem, grew by 12 miles Tuesday. The Riverside in Clackamas County grew by 17 miles and consumed 22 structures. And what we cannot see is the grim reality on the ground, where state leaders fear many were not able to escape the firestorms.
Let me start by bracing all of you for some very difficult news. We are currently facing a statewide fire emergency. Over the last 24 hours, Oregon has experienced unprecedented fire with significant damage and devastating consequences across the entire state.
Governor Kate Brown warned that in Lane County, the towns of Blue River and Vida might be destroyed, as well as Phoenix and Talent in southern Oregon.
I want to be upfront in saying that we expect to see a great deal of loss, both in structures and in human lives. This could be the greatest loss of human lives and property due to wildfire in our state's history.
Recovery teams are gathering to begin searches where the fire has passed through. The governor could not offer any numbers of people who are missing or dead. The fires in Oregon now spread over more than 300,000 acres. That's the equivalent of 500 square miles. And most of the big ones erupted just over this past weekend or on Labor Day. For some context, consider this. A megafire is one that covers 100,000 acres or more. Oregon saw 6 megafires from 1900 until 1999. From 2000 until now, there were 11. And in all those years, there were never more than 2 per year. But now, according to the Department of Forestry spokesman, there are 3 or 4 burning all at once.
We are absolutely in unprecedented times. This event has evolved over the last 72 hours, driven by a cold front on top of an east wind event. The cold front brings critically impressive high winds, and then the east wind event sustains those winds.
He also said those winds are driving the fires down the west slopes of the Cascade Range, raining firestorms on small communities and rural homes. Across the state, firefighters and the National Guard are doing everything they can to help with these fires. They're not trying to stop them, they're just trying to rescue people and get them out of the way. But the governor knows for some, it's probably already too late. In Northeast Portland, Pat Doris, KGW News.
So it goes without saying, a lot of people need a lot of help right now. If you are safe, if you're somebody who's not directly being threatened by all of this, and this is something you want to play a part in, some help you want to give back to the community, you can donate if you'd like to our Northwest Response Fund. Take a look at the QR code that's on your screen right now. I don't know if you're familiar with these. All you have to do is open up the camera app on your smartphone and aim that at that QR code on your screen. It will take you to a section of the Red Cross's website where you can make a donation. We'll keep that up for just a little bit in case it takes you a moment to get out your phone. But all of the money that we raise is going to go directly to wildfire recovery. Now, we activated this fund yesterday, and already people at home, you folks have donated $161,000 in one day, which is incredible to me. It just gives me a warm feeling with everything else going on in the world that people are so generous to the ones who need it the most in this immediate time of need. It is incredible, and I thank every single person who made a donation. Now, those dollars will go directly where they are needed after all of this, and they are needed. The story continues. Next.
I don't know what to think.
From our porch, you can see everything, flames and everything.
From what we were tracking, we thought that it missed us. We thought that it stopped.
I went from it being sunny, blue skies, into the sun being red, into I don't even see the sun anymore.
I was scared. Very, very, very tearful. I just was grabbing things and throwing it in the car.
Sheriff's coming through, going, level 3, get out. Get out.
What did you lose inside?
Everything. Everything. This is it. This is what I've got.
What you're wearing right now?
This is what I've got. This is what I've got.
I'm so sorry.
I don't know what is there, what's left. Oh my God, it's our house. Thank God we got out of here. Oh my God.
I remember sitting on my couch praying and crying for, Australia, praying and crying for paradise. And yeah, you don't think it's going to happen to you.
Hey everybody, welcome back. We haven't been reading a whole lot of viewer comments this week. Kind of felt it was more important to just be on top of the fires across the state, considering how many people are in the line of fire literally right now. So we wanted to make that kind of the big part of the show. But some of your questions are relevant to these fires, so we are going to answer one of them right now. And it comes from Marlon. Asked this question on 2 counts. I think it's relevant. How will the fires affect the November election since homes have been burned? How are ballots delivered in that case? So Marlon, we asked the Secretary of State's office your question, and they did answer. They gave us an answer. They said voters stay registered at their permanent residence even if it is destroyed or they are displaced when they have an intent to return. They will want to ensure that they update their mailing address so election officials can mail the ballot to their temporary location. But that is something to remember if you have family or friends who lost their homes. Voting might be the very last thing on their mind throughout all of this, but it is something they may regret missing. So let them know to contact the elections office and get their ballot sent to the right place. So we are not strangers, of course, to bad fire seasons in Oregon and Washington, but this might be one of the worst. And our leaders knew something like this was possible, and they tried to take action on it this year, but it just never happened. See, earlier this year, Governor Brown unveiled a big wildfire protection plan. It was aimed at preventing and responding to wildfires over the long term. Lawmakers, they even formed this new Senate committee dedicated to tackling this exact legislation. But then the walkout happened. You probably remember this. Back in February, Democrats and Republicans, they couldn't reach an agreement over cap and trade, the climate bill. So Republicans walked out over this for the second year in a row to stop a vote, and Democrats ended the session. Almost nothing passed overall, including 4 wildfire bills that were on the table. But lawmakers will be back in Salem in January, so we might actually see some of these proposals again. Hopefully, here's what the plans would have done. They would have cleared wildfire fuels on about 300,000 acres of land per year, created standards for utility companies to prevent power lines from starting fires, created safe zones around properties, and would have made sure that every piece of land in the state is part of the wildfire response jurisdiction. It would have also funded smoke filtration systems for private homes and public buildings, improve building codes overall, and study firefighting costs compared to other states. The governor wants to create a specific office focused on wildfires within the Office of Emergency Management. Her office told us that they do plan to introduce something similar next year. Now, it is a little ironic, I think, that before smoke blanketed Oregon and Washington, we were already dealing with a pandemic, kind of made it cool to wear a mask in the first place. So as tempting as it is to use your COVID mask to deal with our terrible air quality, Kristen Severance did find out that not all masks are created equal for these conditions.
Dan, even if you aren't near a fire, the air quality across Oregon and Washington is not great. Some cities are worse than others. I want to take this air quality map full just to show you what I'm talking about. So if you look here in Portland, that's all the yellow areas, and some other parts of Washington and Oregon, the category there is moderate. If you look at the orange category, that's going to be unhealthy for sensitive groups. Look along the coast. The air quality there is unhealthy. The most concerning is this maroon area, that's Eugene and just outside of Salem. The air quality there is hazardous, but really trying to protect your lungs from bad air or smoke during a pandemic can be tricky. With hundreds of thousands of acres burning in Oregon, you may want a mask to protect your lungs from breathing in smoke or dirty air. According to the Centers for Disease Control, when trees and brush burn, carbon particles and toxic hydrocarbons are released into the air. Inhaling wildfire smoke can cause coughing, lung inflammation, and shortness of breath, which can make respiratory illnesses like COVID-19 worse. Dr. An Nguyen is a senior medical director at Providence.
So there are irritants that come in for people that have underlying illnesses such as asthma or heart and lung conditions. That irritant can actually exacerbate their current situation.
Doctors say the cloth face coverings and surgical masks most of us wear to stop the spread of COVID will not filter out most smoke particles. The N95 respirator mask will protect you from COVID and from smoke particles, but they should still really be reserved for healthcare workers. What about the N95 masks with the valves? Doctors say good for blocking smoke particles, but not coronavirus. You could wear a cloth mask over the N95 mask with a valve as an alternative. According to the CDC, the best way to protect yourself from wildfire smoke is to stay inside and use a portable air cleaner if you can.
They should stay inside because that's the safest place for them to be. So if there's high smoke anywhere, they should just try to avoid those places because the mask isn't going to offer them as much protection as being indoors would be.
There is some great information from the CDC about, protecting yourself and staying safe when you're inside. For example, if you have a forced air system in your home, you may need to speak with an HVAC professional about different filters and settings. For example, you want to use recirculate and on rather than auto. I put all of this information on our website. Just click on this story and you can check out all of our wildfire coverage to keep you and your family safe.
Thank you to Kristen. Now, one of the largest firefighting helicopters in Oregon is the CH-47 Chinook. I mean, these things are really cool. Twin engine. They can reach speeds of almost 200 miles per hour. They're capable of carrying very heavy loads like water to dump on fires. It would be really nice to have them right about now. Unfortunately, for Oregonians, they're halfway around the world. Today, the Oregon Military Department told us that 6 CH-47s are not available to fight these fires because the Department of Defense has requested them to take part in military missions in Afghanistan. Now, that's not to say Oregon is totally without some air support right now. The state has 7 helicopters currently on active duty, 2 for search and rescue efforts, 1 to help map the fires, and 4 to do water drops. It has been a somber show. I mean, it's been a somber day, really, a somber couple of days. So I guess that's what's to be expected. But we would love to hear from you. Use that hashtag, HeyDan. Tell us what's on your mind. Ask us some questions. Even if we don't answer them in the next couple of minutes, we'll keep working on them for you. Reach out, pick up your phone, and talk to us. We're going to read a few when we finish the story. Next. Got 2 questions here. Styles WB said, "Hey Dan, please ask Matt if the combined acreage burned so far comes close to what was the Tillamook burn of 1933, which burned 350,000 acres. Matt's not in here right now, but I remember hearing him earlier saying that we were already over 300,000 combined acres. So we know it's at least close to what you referenced here, and I would love for it to stop right now, but it doesn't look like that's going to happen. And Andrea wrote it and said, please draw the connection between these unprecedented fires and climate change. And Matt also, I'm speaking for him a lot right now, but he talked about this yesterday on the story and essentially said that when looking at this wind event alone, that there's not a ton of evidence to pin that directly to climate change, but it is undeniable. Matt was saying that what we have seen, the culmination of events, the dramatic fires, the wind with the dry weather, with the heat combined, is a result of the changing climate that we have here on our planet. So message Matt, follow him on Facebook, follow him on Twitter. He is a very smart guy. We're lucky to have him here at KGW, but he can fill you in on all the questions you have, and keep those coming here using that hashtag, HeyDan. That does it for us here on The Story. The news at 6:30 and more fire coverage is next. I'll see you tomorrow.